Hey, and welcome everyone. This evening, we have Mr. Jay Wilkes with us. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thanks, Jeremy. Glad to be here.
Yeah, everyone gets an intro, and yours is pretty lengthy. So give me a moment to kind of go through all this. So we have Jay Wilkes. He is a public servant. He's worked for the Peace Corps. He's a Peace Corps veteran. Sorry, nearly 4 years. He spent some time in Mongolia and El Salvador, which sounds freaking awesome. A former competitive athlete. He did swimming, water polo, surfing, and LA County Ocean Lifeguard. That's a mouthful. Married, a father of three boys, including twins. DC Homebrewers member. BJCP judge. Nearly 100 competition medals. That includes multiple NHC placements, best of show wins, over a decade of brewing, and now is a disc golf enthusiast, a casual swimmer. Is there anything else?
No, I think that's it. And even with the BJCP stuff, I'm like calling myself a BJPC judge. I don't think that's really fair because I've passed the initial test, but I'm not someone who's active in BJCP judges. I follow the guidelines very closely, and
Okay.
because I'm obviously competing in homebrew comps, and I'm tracking the cider updates and the meat updates as they come out from the BJCP. So definitely something I follow, but not something I'm actively using.
Oh, yeah, okay, so not a practitioner quite yet. That's still amazing resume so far. So we'll start with this opening question. So your brother-in-law bought you a homebrew kit from, I think it was Brick and Brew Shop, I believe, back in 2013-ish. Is that correct?
Yeah, 2013. I think it
Okay.
was 2013.
All right.
Asked my girlfriend at the time, now wife, what should I get Jay for for I think the holidays? And she asked me, and I said, you know what? Like we've been going to more and more breweries with
Mhm.
friends that have been, they've been popping up around the country. It was really the boom that I noted anyway. And the I said, well, why don't you get me like just tell them to get me a brew kit?
Mhm.
And didn't really think much of it. Brewed beer with that. Brewed a not a very good honey porter, White House honey porter, I
Okay.
think it was
Yep.
called, the White House honey porter kit. And that kind of led me down the rabbit hole. Really started going from there, started connecting more with people who were, either going to breweries, starting to brew their own beer until I landed with a group of three or four guys who, two of them were much more advanced than me. They had massive setups in their garages, sheds, basements that were. I remember looking at those things and being like, "This is where I want to be. This is what I want to have. This is the direction I want to go." And now, I mean, don't want to skip too far ahead, but those guys have now exited the hobby, and I'm left here brewing beer at a significantly less volume than I was in the past.
Well, yeah, I think that happens to everybody. I think I'm down like 3 gallon batches myself because like 5 gallons, I don't ever really get through. You can only take so much to homebrew clubs, anyways, right? So you
That's
can only
right.
get rid of so much of it. So I find like 3 gallons to be like the sweet spot where I can take enough to the homebrew club and still have enough to enjoy by myself if I want to.
I'm in the exact same boat. I do 5 gallon batches, so essentially just a
Mm.
keg, and I'm mostly giving it away to neighbors, sending it off to competitions, and there's usually about a gallon or two left for my wife and I to enjoy.
There you go. That's perfect. Oh, hey, you have a wife. You have a wife that enjoys beer. That must be nice.
She does enjoy beer, not as much as I'd say wine and cocktails, but if I'm
Fair
brewing a
enough.
Belgian beer, she definitely is interested in how that's going.
Oh, we'll definitely talk about that here shortly. Okay. So you got the kit. Obviously, unlocked some type of rabbit hole for you because you saw your friends' setups. You're like, ooh, wow, that's awesome. So walk me through that journey of going from like your first time casual brewing to almost getting 100 competition medals.
Oh wow, that's a big jump. I'll do my best. Okay, so obviously, like I think most home brewers started out with the really small kits. It was just a really 1 gallon kit. I fermented in my closet of the apartment
Okay.
that my girlfriend and I were living in. No fermentation control, just a packet of yeast, no starter, nothing like that. And then I remember serving it to my now father-in-law. He came and visited us, and he was like, "This is really good." And I was kind of surprised, and because I didn't think it was all that great. It didn't taste like beer that I was getting from breweries. But he enjoyed it, And so I was like, well, if he thinks it's good, maybe I should keep going with
Hmm.
this. And so I kept going and going. And I got a couple more kits before I said, okay, let me step this up. I ramped up to like the big 5 gallon Northern Brewer kit
Okay.
that I got with the big carboy, was still doing that in my closet. And I got to the point where the friends that I had developed that were in the brewing community already were essentially saying like, we can do huge batches at our houses. Why don't we start developing recipes together? And we'll do
Wow.
like a 10-gallon batch. So you take 5 and I take 5. And that
Hmm. Hmm.
that really, really helped because it actually got me using their systems,
Hmm.
seeing the different systems that they were using, and then kind of dialing in how I wanted to, build my system, what I wanted to do. Looked like kind of led me down the rabbit hole of like, here's what recipe development really looks like.
Hmm.
Here's all the components. It's not just grain, hops, and yeast. It's how you treat the
Right.
yeast. It's the
Hmm.
nutrients that go into the water,
Hmm.
the brewing salts, all that stuff. And so I think it really kind of went through there to where right around the pandemic, like right before the pandemic, this was around 2000.
Okay.
I was brewing, I would say, twice a month. And I have a 4 tap kegerator in my basement, and it was always full, and I was just rotating out taps,
Right. Right.
rotating beers. And then it was great because people are coming over, they're enjoying your beer, you're giving it away. I'm going to DC homebrew club meetings and giving it to people, going to other homebrew club meetings in the area, giving those to people, and really sharing a lot of beer, and it was great. um, it started to scale down obviously once COVID hit because no
Hmm.
one was coming over,
Yeah.
no one's drinking as much, no one's really celebrating anything. And so it took a pretty significant hiatus, about a year and a half, where I maybe brewed once or twice in the
Wow.
year,
Hmm.
until I actually learned about, and this goes to the competition piece, the nonprofit organization that started, I think, in 2020, 2021, the Master Homebrewer program, which
Yeah.
is a gamification system of really ranking up around and celebrating how well you do in not only each beer style, but types of beers. And it really kind of gets you out of your comfort zone because it says, if you want to earn this rank, if you want to level up, you need to brew this type of beer, which really kind of led me down to doing stuff that I hadn't done before and is
Right.
doing.
Right. Yeah, that's a wow. Wow. That's fascinating. Like all that was phenomenal. That was really great. So you mentioned that your second ever competition that you did for the National Homebrew Club in 2017, you had a placement in that with the oaked age triple.
Yes.
How shocked were you when you submitted that and you got the news that you placed?
I was, I think, speechless when I read it. I was just kind of going through to see if I knew anybody that had actually placed. When I saw my name come up, I was shocked, and I think that was the second or third homebrew competition I had entered.
Okay.
I had, I think I had gotten an honorable mention for a beer I brewed, a honey oatmeal imperial porter for my wedding in
Okay. Yeah.
2015. I had some bottles left around, and I entered into a local competition, and that received an honorable mention. And I think I submitted a couple more at some other local competitions, and I said, you know what? I'm going to enter this into this huge competition, and it's changed now, but it was massive at the time. I think that year it had about 9,000, 10,000 entries, a really high amount of entries. And I recall seeing how many people entered just into the oak age category
Mhm.
of the competition. And for, I think it was Philadelphia that it was entered into, it was about 48 or 50, and I got second out of that with a
Okay.
beer that I had brewed, I think 6 or 7 months earlier, let age on oak for 2 or 3 weeks, and just let it kind of sit and
Hmm.
relax and
Hmm.
develop. And I remember tasting it right around the time that they were judging it and thinking, this is a tremendous beer. But I would never thought it would do as well as it did. And that, you know, I think I jumped ahead with the Master Homebrewer program stuff, but that really got me
Hmm.
competing for, I think, 2 or 3 years, where I was looking at every competition around me. What can I enter? What can I do
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
better the beers that I brew? And
Right.
a big piece of it too is who is judging my beers. Is it brewers that are judging my beers? Is it BJCP members,
Mm-hmm.
judges, and what level of judging? And so when I saw like who was judging my beers, these are people who were, authored books under the Brewers Association, like catalog of books that are judges that were judging this, and they had positive feedback for me, gave me high scores, and that to me was really interesting. So it kind of led me down the line to start looking at different competitions and seeing what kind of competition is this, how broad is it,
Right.
because usually those bigger competitions are going to bring in
Mm-hmm.
the more established judges, and that's who I was really looking to see feedback from. And this goes back to like my father-in-law, the first beer I ever brewed, saying, "This is fantastic. I want to drink this," and me being like, "Well, that's great. I'm glad you like it, but what do the heavy hitters think about this stuff? Like, what are the people
Mm-hmm.
who really have the palate for this that have been doing this for decades? That wrote the BJCP. What are they thinking about this?
Mm-hmm.
What are their thoughts?" And that getting their feedback has been like a tremendous help for me in my brewing journey and like the beers I'm making, what the fine tuning I'm doing on
Right.
recipes, the shifts I'm doing in the brewing process has been incredibly helpful.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you just said there. I would like to try it myself, and we're going to talk about that here in like a little bit. But it's nice to go to homebrew clubs. Everyone's like, "Oh, well, I like your beer. I think it tastes great, but it's also free alcohol at the same time." But I do have one individual who will tell me to be straight, like, "Oh, I'm picking this up. I'm picking that up. Like, did you do this or did you try that?" I'm like, "Oh, okay. So these are actually helpful. So if I want to try to do this again, I will take your suggestions and I will try it." Yeah, I only do there's two beers I continuously make over and over again. One is my cream ale, which I think it tastes fine. I love a cream ale, and my honey blueberry ale. I think that one turns really out really good. I tweak it every once in a while just see if I get a little more honey flavor out of it. Then we can talk about honey here in a little bit because I do have some questions about that as well. So you've answered a bunch of my questions in this section already, which is freaking great. But you did mention that you entered into a first. So what was the first competition you actually entered into? What was that?
The
Was that
first the
local?
first competition I
Yeah.
entered into was, I think, either the 2015 or the 2016 turkey shoot, which was run by Maryland Ale and Lager Technicians Malt. And yeah, I
Mouthful.
can't believe I remember that. So they it is now moved on. There's a different homebrew club that is managing the turkey shoot. And so small competition. I think it was around 120, 125 entries into the competition, if I recall. This is it's 10 years ago, so I'm guessing it was rather
Right.
small, still around. But yeah, that was the first one. When I'm brewing now, uh, I'm looking at especially since I've been really kind of, uh, you know, picking away at the master homebrewer program styles and like what I've been
Hmm.
brewing, what haven't I brewed, looking to get high scores in beers in different categories and different styles. I'm looking more and more at what I can brew, and when I do brew those,
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
forecasting. I'm going to either the Master Homebrewer program website to see what upcoming competitions there are,
Hmm.
especially the big boy competitions. Or I'm going to BJCP because oftentimes, with my schedule is I'm very busy with family life. I just don't get
Hmm.
signed up in time for those big ones, and I have to
Right.
look at where I can enter in what competitions are available. So sometimes I'm sending beers to Utah or to Idaho or to
Hmm. Hmm.
Ohio in competitions that I don't really have any experience in, and I don't know who the judges are, but the cool thing about this, and this is one thing about experimenting with competitions that I have really liked. Um, some of those competitions, albeit small, I return to and send my entries in again next year because one, I want to support them, but the feedback and communication I get from them oftentimes is rather good, and you'll have sometimes really high ranked judges
Hmm.
that have a lot of experience that are
Hmm.
at those because it's their local competition that you get feedback from that is really 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 valuable. And I don't want to discount either you know getting feedback from judges that
Hmm.
aren't necessarily BJCP ranked. I have gotten plenty of really welcome and valid feedback from people who are not BJCP judges or who are brewers at local breweries.
Hmm.
But I do always keep a keen eye out to see, if there is like a master BJCP judge
Right.
that is judging my beer, because then I'm reading every word to see what they're saying.
Yeah, that I couldn't imagine like you brought up a little earlier about like the amount of entries that come through. So even 40 to 50 different barrel age, assuming not barrel age, but oak age Belgians, like just the palate that you have to have for something like that has to be, I don't know, phenomenal. Because like I still struggle myself when I try other people's beers. Like it was we have like homebrew club competitions. Like I mean, every beer tastes slightly different, and I get that. But sometimes I have a hard time discerning like what am I tasting? Like what is these subtle differences? So like I couldn't even imagine being like at that kind of a judging level, right? That's so cool. Very cool.
I agree, and I struggle with it as well. And huge kudos to those that can do it and know how to do it really, really well. I've stewarded a couple of different competitions. As a non BJCP judge,
Hmm.
I've judged at competitions, a couple competitions, and those I have struggled. I'm like, really need to do some work if I want to refine my palate
Right.
to do this, where I'm doing this over and over again, because you want to give, especially when you're brewing things that like sours or IPAs that can really overwhelm the palate. Giving the next beer in the flight a fair
Mm,
shot is so tough, and so I'm always incredibly thankful for the BJCP colleagues that do that work and do it
yeah.
are really dedicated to the craft.
Exactly. So we're gonna kind of switch gears just a little bit. We're gonna talk about like the different lives of Mr. J here. So we talked earlier at the beginning, give an intro. You were like a competitive swimmer, water polo surfer, lifeguard, and stuff like that. I'm kind of curious about like what was it like being LA County Ocean lifeguard? I mean, that's not a typical like summer job, right? I mean, that has to be you have to be like Johnny on the spot for that one, right? You have to be super focused with all the tourists and everything like that.
Sure. It was so I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in a beach community. So the beach community I grew up in was surfing, water polo, swimming was if one of the many outlets there, and especially with the beach nearby. If I wasn't, in middle school and high school, if I wasn't swimming or playing water polo, I was body surfing
Hmm.
or bodyboarding or in later years surfing quite a bit. In Southern California, and it naturally led. I mean, I did instead of doing camps like a lot of like my kids are doing here in the summer. There was junior lifeguard programs, which are fantastic youth programs in coastal communities. You learn all about first aid, ocean
Hmm.
awareness, safety, and it makes you an incredibly strong swimmer, especially in the ocean. And so to me, that was actually the career I was looking to do when I was,
Okay.
when I was young. I really wanted to get into being a permanent ocean lifeguard. It was a dream of mine. And then, college, Peace Corps,
Yep.
other things happen, and your career kind of deviates, right?
Oh,
But
100%.
being an LA County lifeguard, I tell my friends, my family, best job I ever had was working for not only LA County but the other two cities that I worked for prior to that as an ocean lifeguard. One of the most fun but also most stressful jobs you can ever have, especially when I mean, some of the breaks that you get in Southern California on really huge days
Mm.
can be up to 10 to 12 feet breaks with multiple breaks of waves coming in.
Wow,
And if you're
yeah.
not a strong swimmer and you get out there, it can be incredibly dangerous. And I continue to have a lot of respect for the profession. I'm really glad I did it. But boy, that feels like a lifetime ago that I was doing that.
So you brought the Peace Corps. I remember you said you spent 4 years in Mongolia and El Salvador. So I kind of have like a couple questions on that. So I kind of want to talk about, did you try any fermented beverages where you were in those locations? And what were
Did.
those?
So there's um, there is a beverage in Mongolia that is native to, I wouldn't say just Mongolia. I think it's a Central Asian beverage, but it's really it's an interesting thing to drink in Mongolia. It's called erig, which is fermented mare's milk, and it's very sour. It's fermented wild with wild yeast, wild bacteria that are there. Everyone's tastes a little bit different depending on what community you go to and what household is actually making it, because it has their own wild bacteria and wild yeast they're going into it. But very quite a bit of that like sour pucker bacteria that you get in a lot of that as well. And it clocks in. I think what I remember, it's somewhere between like 2.5 and 3.5%. It's a very low alcohol beverage, but it goes very well with the cuisine. It's not something you drink in huge quantities. It's definitely a sipper and something that is complementary to um, really traditional food that you're eating there. Boats, which are like these dumplings, horshor, which are these kind of like fried meat patties, and soybean, which are like these noodle dishes that are like handmade flour noodles with vegetables. Very, I would consider it very not the spiciest or the most flavorful of some foods, but something that I used that I ate daily for nearly 3.5 years when I
Wow.
was living in
Yeah.
Mongolia. 'Cause that's pretty much what everyone ate.
Okay. So what about El Salvador? Was there anything interesting there?
Sure. So I was in El Salvador for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that rounds out about almost 4 years with the Peace Corps. And I was a Peace Corps response volunteer, and I was working with a local nonprofit organization doing disaster management in two different villages on the side of a volcano. I did not drink a lot while I was there. I did have a couple of local beers, but nothing that I would say was truly remarkable. Mostly stuff that you can probably still get in the States now. Um, uh, I would like international pale lagers that are just ubiquitous throughout the area.
Right. Yeah. That's pretty exciting. Yeah. That's I've never met anybody who actually served in the Peace Corps. So thank you for that. That's pretty awesome. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So I kind of we're gonna switch this a little bit again. We're gonna talk about like parenting and brewing and stuff like that. So, like I said at the beginning, you have three children. Two of them are twins. How has that changed your brewing and drinking lifestyles over the? I'm not even sure how old they are, but within the last 5 years or so.
Dramatically, I would say, uh, I wouldn't say it has really impacted the drinking, because I think the drinking, as I got married and, with COVID and less people coming over and people moving away from drinking beer and even homebrewing, that decreased significantly. I think adding kids probably increased that as well, just because there wasn't, there's not you go to bed early and you or you're on the weekends you're taking them, you're shuttling them around to different camps and different sports and different
Mm-hmm.
activities, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
not like I'm going out with pals all the time and grabbing a beer, or they're coming over here and grabbing beers. So it definitely has had an impact. I think with the first kid, he was born in 2017, and it was, you think it's challenging with one kid until you have more, and then so like, but even when we had one kid, I was still trying to carve out time to
Mm-hmm.
brew, and I think I was brewing once a month for the first year and a half. So still trying to keep up with my hobby. I was still very much into brewing it and recipe development and really kind of fine tuning some recipes that I had been working on for 2 or 3 years to really kind of master as best I could. And so my wife, gave me the time to carve out that time to be in the backyard on the system I had at the time, and make those adjustments and brew the beer and have some fun. Yeah, my oldest is 8, and then I have, we mentioned the twins earlier. I have two twin 6-year-old boys as well.
6-year-old boys. Oh wow, yeah, they're pretty close in age. Well, that's good that way. I guess they kind of play together really, really well. So, does the oldest one help out at all in the brewery, or just to show any interest? Like, hey, Dad, let me help you bottle this or something. Or
He's definitely shown interest, so he'll come out. Like, my brewery is out in my garage, which is detached from my house,
okay,
and it's a 3 vessel system. I know we can talk about this a little bit later, but
yeah,
3 vessel system. So it's actually pretty big, and it's got the big jet burner. So whenever the kids come out, I'm always like, on guard.
one
Don't
hundred
get too
percent.
close. Don't get too close to dad's system, right? And so, but I'll be talking with him, and like we have a dog, so the dog's out there in the yard with us, and like they're either playing basketball, soccer, or they're doing stuff in the yard, especially when the weather is really really nice. And I've allowed them to gravitate over to me and ask questions about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and so there is interest, and the one thing that they're always keen on trying is the wort. So
Mm-hmm.
when the wort, before it goes into the boil, I have little pipettes that I use for testing, and I'll pull some samples and give some squirts of the wort into their mouth, and they're like, "Oh, this your beer is tasty." And I'm like, "Oh, sure. It is now. You probably won't like it
Right.
when it's, done fermenting in about a month and a half."
And
So
there's
that's
no sugars left.
but I don't I think with everything, I don't wanna try to push them into anything. I wanna give them the space to explore and ask questions. My oldest definitely explores and ask questions. One of my twins will, every once in a while when I'm tinkering out in the garage, ask, "Dad, are you making beer?" Or "What is this?" Like, he'll
Mm,
see me, like, shoveling grains out of the grain bag,
mhm, mhm,
in a trash bag, and I'm like, "Oh, come over here and smell it. This is what bread smells like," that type of thing. So kinda getting him familiar with the process. Not necessarily something that I'm eager to pass on to them, but if they take
mhm.
interest in it, like, I felt like I've, spent so much time learning how to do this. I don't mind passing it on at all if they have questions and if they do show an interest later on.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. So what does your wife think about your hobby?
Um, wow, that's try to answer this safely. Uh, I think the best thing I can say is incredibly supportive, especially of the pivots I have made around brewing beer. So when we first started brewing beer, and I say we because it has been a team effort. She is not a brewer, but a big part of this is her allowing me to like take the kids or give me the time to like cut out to do this, and so I always consider it kind of a we thing that we do together. And she knows that I love doing it. She knows that I've spent so much time reading books and experimenting and having fun with all of this stuff. And she, I think for the most part, likes everything I brew. I've brewed a couple of, no, I would say three Rausch beers or smoked beers now that just definitely aren't for her palate, and I love them. Like, give me, a Rauch beer, and I'm super happy. But I'm gonna be the only one drinking it, and so that definitely has curtailed the amount of time and effort I'm putting into brewing those beers. But whenever I am brewing something Belgian, which is getting more and more common these days because I'm kind of pivoting back to what I really like brewing and what I
Mhm.
love, she's very excited. She wants to know all about it. What are you doing differently this time? And ask questions. And she knows enough about the process. She's seen me do it where she can ask not expert questions, but stuff that's beyond something my father-in-law would ask me, who really enjoys beer but has never brewed.
Right. So for parents who are listening, what advice would you give them about like trying to like setting time for brew and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's okay to slow down. I That's one big thing that I took massive breaks in brewing and brewing schedule, and my priority has always been the family first, the kids first. If there's anything that, and this happens all the time, is I'll plan a brew day and something happens where a kid gets sick, or hey, a random breakdancing class comes up when my kids breakdances,
Awesome.
and or a soccer game got postponed, and they have to do it now. Like, I drop everything, even if it means like I'm about to fire up the jets,
Mhm.
or a yeast pack is going to expire, something like that. I just stop and say like, this is not as important as these type of things. And I've taken breaks of, during COVID. I think the longest break I took was, I think I said around 6 months to a
Mhm.
year, around there. And even now, my brewing has slowed down significantly, so that when I am able to brew, what I like about it is when I know I'm going to be able to brew, I feel really, really dialed in because it becomes so much more of a special process. And that's the thing about home
Mm,
brewing is one of the things that kept me going is like it feels like magic. Like you're adding
mhm,
a vial of yeast, and I know the science behind it, but it still feels so magical when you're just adding a packet of yeast and like you're nurturing this thing that you've been spent 4 or 5 hours laboring over after
mhm.
before adding the yeast, and then it comes out somewhere 2 weeks to 3-4 months later, and it's this really cool beverage where that's very nuanced and delicious and has all these different flavors that developed and still continues to develop as you're
Yeah.
drinking it out, slowly drinking it out of the keg, and as you're giving it to people. And that's one of the things is like I really cherish about it, and
Mhm.
being able to get that time to do that is really special. At the end of the day, it's peanuts compared to the kids and the family.
Yeah, exactly. But I have the same love. Like, I can see in your face like you love this hobby. Like I love the process of making the beer, right? I love like firing it up, crushing my own grains, getting over. I love the smells. I love the different hop smells that just fill up the garage and transferring it and all that. It's like the whole process. I love so much. Like I've talked to someone else in a previous podcast. Like I don't have much of a problem pouring off 2 or 3 pints, throwing the rest away, and just for another batch.
Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't
it,
bother
it
me
is
then.
it is really fun, and it's like what I heard you talking about is like it's so evocative of like all these core memories I have of like being out in the backyard in like 95-degree heat with like incredibly high humidity where I'm dripping everywhere, but I have something going, and the smells that you get when you open it up, uh, when you're still doing it in a carboy, which I was up until about 4 years ago, seeing the yeast working and how much movement is actually taking place in the
Yeah.
fermentation vessel is that's one thing that really I don't like. I love my stainless. I have a stainless fermenter now, and I love it. But that's one thing that I always want to peak, and I have, because I want to. I like seeing the yeast work. I like
Hmm.
seeing the magic happening. And so that's one of the harder parts about moving to stainless. But it's such a fun process. It's so
Hmm.
cool to see what you can do and what you can make. And I don't come from like a massive cooking background. I come from like just tinkering and exploring hobbies and stuff like that. And this is just one of the ones that randomly stuck, is doing this. And I plan on continuing to do it as long as I can. And as long as my system holds up, or unless I need to pivot to something else.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Yeah, I have a very basic just brew in a bag. I just have one burner. I just like when I was looking at all the different not styles, the different ways to make beer. When I come across brew in a bag, like this is for me. I know how to make tea. That's all I'm doing. I'm steeping the grains, and I just love it. My beer turns out fairly okay. I'm not as decorated in metals as you are. I've won one competition, which I was pretty stoked. So I only brewed for I think about a year and a half at that point.
That's
And then
awesome. What style of beer did you enter?
I did a stout.
Oh, nice.
I never made a stout, my first stout I ever made. So I think what my secret ingredient was is I actually like threw like a handful of oats into it. I didn't really measure it. It was just a handful. I felt like, well, maybe I give it just a little more body to it, so I just threw that in there. And the person that I beat in my homebrew club, I won by 2 points. And I felt kind of bad because he bragged like how good his was. It's like the best porter he ever made because it was a stout porter competition, and he's been brewing for over like a decade. I'm like going, okay, cool. If I'm gonna lose to somebody, I'd rather lose to him because he's been doing it for so long, and then to beat him. And I was like, oh man, I feel kind of bad. I was excited at the same time though too. So
That is really exciting, and you shouldn't feel bad. You made a
yeah,
great beer. That's awesome.
yeah, it was a good time. So since we're talking about metals, you like we talked about earlier, like you're nearly 100 in local, regional, national competitions. Oh, there's just so many questions here I want to ask. So let's start with strategy. Like, what separates a competition winning beer versus like an everyday garage batch?
Oh man.
Kind of a loaded question. I get it, but
I mean, I hear like I've listened to so many podcasts about homebrewing, and I think the big thing for me, that I found really rings true, that really separates the good from the okay, is fermentation. I've read it in his books. I've heard Jamil Zanishev say it a few times on Brew Strong and other podcasts that he's been on, that um, good yeast health and proper fermentation, you can have okay work, and that's really what's going to do it. That's really what's going to
okay.
make things shine. Is not only that, but I've noticed also, as people have really been dialing stuff in, is cold side oxidation control. If you can get that down, and that's still something that I struggle with, just because I don't have all of the gizmos and doodads to do everything as perfectly as I possibly can. The head of my the DC homebrewers, actually, we were texting, I would say about 3 weeks, a month ago, and he said something that was, I felt so apt, which was he was, I think he just wrapped up judging an IPA table at a competition, and he was judging with a brewer at at a local brewery, and he's like, oh, the IPA competition is like the competition that shows who can package the best, which I found really apt. It's like that really is. It's like if you can maintain all of those hop goodies, those hop aromas and hop flavors through packaging, you're probably going to win. And I think that is one of the big separators. In addition to really paying attention to how many billions of cells of yeast are going into your beer. Is that enough? How vibrant is the yeast? I mean, I've gotten yeast that has a, you know, due date of, 2 months out or 3 months out from when it should be, and then you get it into a starter and it you can tell it's flabby. And so getting, if that happens, I'm like, okay, so the yeast count really wasn't where I want it to be,
Mhm.
and doing like maybe a second or a third starter to get that thing up to where I want it to be, especially if I'm brewing a big beer.
Okay, so yeah, so yeast is a big component to your competition brewing process.
Yeah.
So what do you so okay, so you were talking about like you're playing the what was the program you said, the homebrew, what was
The
it
Master
called?
Homebrewer program.
Thank you. Yeah, but okay,
Yeah.
so they dictate what beers to make for this program. But for the other ones, do you look at certain styles that you know that you already do well in and just submit those to those competitions?
So yes and no.
Okay.
For example, in the Master Homebrewer program, if you want to rank up from, let's say, recognized to distinguished, which
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
you'll have to brew a certain number of beers that are over, they've scored 38 or higher, and they break it up so it's not only by BJC category. It'll be like, one in it'll excuse me, it'll be 15, and I'm not reading it because I don't have it right in front of me, but it'll be, 38 and above in 10 categories of beer. And then in the, of those categories or of any category, 38 and above, and you have to get, score 20 or 25 beers above 38 points. So when I was really plugging away at the Master Homebrewer program, and I still do, to a lesser extent now than I was, I'd say, last year and the year before, but I'm looking at what categories have I not scored 38 or higher in? What beer styles have I not done? And if I look at the Belgian category, which that's the style I like to brew, that's the, what I've entered probably the most beers in is Belgians. I've scored 38 and above in almost all of the categories that I've entered.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes it so if you want to rank up, you start to have to hit other categories. And so I'm, brewing things like American lagers, which I do enjoy quite a bit, but it's not something that I'm going out of my way to brew because they're just everywhere. And they're also incredibly difficult to brew. And that's one of the cool things I think about the program is you have to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
This is to develop you into becoming a better brewer. And I don't have any aims of opening my own brewery or anything like that. I love the hobby. I love it for what it is. Um, but it does force you to say, hey, I'm gonna brew. Oh, I'm looking at the categories. I have to brew a hazy IPA. How am I gonna do that? Like, what am I gonna
Mm-hmm.
do? What type of beer is that? Because that's something that I don't usually drink a lot of, but I need to look into and kind of explore what goes into that beer. And it makes you do the research, makes you learn about it, and it's really, again, one of those, another rabbit hole that you can dive into to try to
Yeah.
better yourself around each one of these styles and each one of these categories.
Yep. So, I don't want to go back just a little bit. Talk about like you've won multiple Best of Show awards. You
I've
won
won
one.
one,
Oh,
yeah,
okay. You won one.
one
Okay.
Best of Show award, yeah.
Okay. So how, how did that go for you? Like, what did you enter? I guess that's the actual question I want to ask for that one.
Sure, it was a Spelt Saison. and
Okay.
I actually just rebrewed it yesterday, randomly.
Yeah.
Hadn't brewed it since, so I think that was 2022. It was it was a local competition, about 150 people in it,
Oh, wow.
and I scored well. I didn't score poorly. I scored a 39,
Hmm.
and then it went on to a different judge in the best of show, and that judge, the head judge, loved it and scored it, really well. Really gave me some really positive feedback about that beer, and it's interesting because it's a beer that when I brewed it and I was drinking it, I was like, this is hands down one of the best beers that I've ever made. I was really proud of myself, really impressed. I was giving it away like crazy because I wanted, friends to drink this. And I entered it into, I think, two or three competitions, and it was all over the place in terms of scoring. And that is actually one of the reasons why I rebrewed this is I really wanted to see if I could dial this in and get this to a couple of competitions, one being possibly the national homebrew competition whenever they open up dates and times for
Hmm.
entry and stuff like that. Hopefully this time's right with it being kind of ripe and ready, but also into a couple of other the big Circuit of America competitions,
Hmm.
which are the Circuit of America are a bunch of competitions across the country that the Master Homebrewer program partners with, that are really kind of the elite competitions across the country. That I always keep my eye on. I know there's a couple of homebrewers in my club that keep their eye on it as well and have been incredibly competitive in it.
Hmm.
I'm not as competitive as they are because I think they have a little bit more time and resources available to them to do that stuff. But if I can get an entry into those, to a couple of those, that's the way I want to go. And I brewed this one, and I have a blonde honey beer de garde that I brewed
Oh.
about a month and a half ago. That is aging right now. It's lagering right now. That hopefully is going to be ready around the same time,
Hmm.
so I can get those in.
Wow, that one actually sounds really tasty. Yeah, I've only done one blonde ale. It turned out all right. It wasn't like the best beer I ever made, but it was drinkable. I need My issue is I've noticed like I don't like I said I've only repeated a couple beers, but I like just to keep trying other styles. Like I just go look at the style guidelines. I'm like going, oh, okay, let's go make this and just try to figure out how to make it, or maybe I'll find a recipe and I'm like, okay, I kind of have those ingredients on hand, or I'll just use whatever I got to try to substitute that. And I find that pretty interesting too. Like, um, for the hop category. So let's say, trying to think what on top of my head, like a citra hop. Let's say I don't have any citra hop on it, but I may be able to use like maybe a Galaxy or Centennial or something like that to kind of compensate for that. One thing I need to get a little better at is like alpha acids. So I don't always read the alpha acids as I'm like using my program to put things in. I just kind of guess. I was like, oh, they're normally six, whatever. But I happen to look at the package, like, so if this year's batch was 8.5, like, holy crap, so my IBUs are way off now. So I think that's why some of my beers kind of taste either really good or kind of off a little bit. The whole the IBUs get a little kind of funky on me in there.
I find it interesting that like I find every homebrewer has this like one thing that they're like, oh, like I don't really pay attention to that much, but I still create really good beer, and I do the same thing. So I'm looking at the one thing that when homebrewers talk to me, it's like, what's one thing that you're kind of lax on about? And mine is, I wouldn't say I'm lax about it, but I'm much more lax than I think others in the homebrew community who are very serious about competing and really, really dialing it in. But it's pH. So
Mm,
I do add lactic acid to my beers, but I have homebrew software, and the homebrew software says, based off the grains that you've entered, and I'm really diligent about, okay, so I'm using Wireman Bark Pilsner, and
mm,
I'm using um, Castle, amber malt or something,
mm, mm,
whatever it is, and it's all plugged in, so it has like the stuff that's going to show you what acidity it expects it to be.
mm,
And what I'm usually doing is, instead of taking pH, because I find taking pH to be so tedious, and
mm.
really you have to be, you have to have your meter tuned in,
Yep.
and that's one of the things that I just don't have dialed in. I have a pH meter, I have a really nice one, but it's been shelved for about good 3-4 years now because I feel like the software hasn't really led me astray. I'm still getting my my starting gravity is within a point
Mm-hmm.
or two, and that's not something that I really worry about too much. Is if I'm a few points off, then yeah, I'm making small changes, but if I'm one or two off, it shouldn't be that big.
Yeah, so I have a pH meter too. I started using it pretty diligently, but then I noticed my pH meter, and I use Brewfather as my software of choice, and I noticed that there wasn't much of a big difference. If there was, it was like point whatever one plus one or minus one. Basically, it was pretty close. I'm like,
Right.
so I just quit using that. So like, well, this is pretty accurate. And then I was like, man, I spent so much money on something it's just collecting
Same.
dust.
I feel awful. Like I got it as a Christmas gift, I think in 2020 or
Okay, yeah,
2021. I used it 4 or 5 times, but I was looking at it. I'm like, this is pretty accurate. I use Beersmith,
okay, yeah.
love the software, and the pH. What anticipated pH was really really close every time. I was like,
Hmm.
maybe I just don't need to use this, and I'll just
Right.
go this way.
Now I still use a lot of distilled water because I'm on the edge of my city water line, so I'm not sure what it is. I don't feel like getting the sample kits and off the ward or anything like that. So I still use distilled. I still use my own salts, so I kind of build up from like a blank slate. For the most part, I try to do my best to try to do the style, but here lately I just been using I have I think it's like a 3-3-3 combo. I think I do like 3 Epsom salt, 3 calcium, and 3 gypsum for like most part. And it turns out pretty fine for me. So that's kind of like my go-to thing because I've been kind of relaxed on that as well too, because I'm not trying to hit like England water profile or Czech style profile water or anything like that. I just want a decent water profile and just kind of just run with it. Again, I'm a programmer by trade, so I work really hard to be lazy. And most programmers will say that they work really hard to be lazy. Like they'll spend hundreds of hours programming this program to do one simple task that they don't ever have to do again.
Yeah. The water is one thing that I've really taken a different approach for. When I first started doing water, I was doing filtered water out of the
Hmm.
tap. So I had like an RV camper and I was
Hmm.
filtering water and I was entering some beers. And I remember, and this is you talked earlier about there's one guy in your club that was really that's really candid about beers and
Hmm.
shares what he really thinks about your beers. Like
Hmm.
I had one guy in my club who I very highly respect, longtime BJCP judge, and he tasted a pale ale I made, which I thought was fantastic. And he said to me, he's like, "Don't you taste the chloramines in this?" And I was like, "Well, what are you talking about? What are chloramines? There's no chloramines. I have a filter. It's filtering everything out." And he's like, "No, no. The county that you live in, if you look at it, they add chloramines in this time of the year to treat the water." And I tasted it and I smelled it, and immediately when he mentioned it, I was like, "Yeah,
Yep.
you're right." And since then, I was doing so much work around. I took samples of my water and sent it in, and then I learned that those samples deviate in different seasons because there's different stuff being added at different times, and
Right.
I was worrying about it so much that I went year round. I actually just started going to the store and I fill up carboys of reverse osmosis water
Yeah.
and bring it back, and then I run through Brewing water, or I actually find Beersmith's water profile settings and tuning really really useful, and I'll use that to kind of dial in what my water is, and I look at it and I'm repeating from a podcast that I probably listened to like 4 or 5 years ago,
Hmm.
but it is kind of like if you're looking at it like you're about to paint something, you want the palette, the paper to be as like clean and crisp and ready for the oils or the paints that you're putting down on it. And I see water as kind of the same vessel for
Right.
brewing beers. I want that. I want it to be it's the base. I want everything that's layered on top of that to really shine. So I've been pretty diligent about paying attention to water and water profiles. I'm not really going off of um I used to, but I'm not
Hmm.
anymore going off of like nailing it for like Antwerp or
Hmm.
some French city that, brewed saisons back in the day and looking at their water profiles now or what it used to be like, anything like that. I feel like I've learned enough from reading, the water and the yeast books, and or just listening to podcasts that
Yeah.
what adding, calcium chloride or gypsum or Epsom salts or baking soda, and any of those brewing salts, what that's going to do and how much you need to do to really make that one piece of your beer, or the parts of your beer that you want to shine.
Yeah, exactly. And I totally agree with that. I think Philosophy's podcast definitely teaches a lot of neat little shortcuts, or will test a lot of theories too. Like if we use this as our base, blah blah blah, get people to taste the difference, and usually it's like inconclusive. Like the bulk of the time, I've kind of noticed, even when they do like the short and shoddy stuff. Like I've even done like the 30-minute mash and 30-minute boil just to see if there's a difference between a 45 and an hour. So I usually stay around like 45. I think 45 is like a good sweet spot if I'm kind of in a hurry just to get the brew day kind of going and over with. Because like you said, I mean, sometimes it could take what, on average 4 hours, 4.5 hours, from start to finish. And then you still got cleanup afterwards, and that takes about another hour cleaning. Yeah. So you're just like, oh, can just, it's like, it's a great process. Um, I'm gonna deviate for a second, but so I tell like a lot of my friends or family who's interested, like in home brewing, I used to say, uh, you used to tell them like you don't have to mind doing dishes because you wash a lot of stuff, right? But now I tell them that I said I have a cleaning hobby that produces beer.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's, so you have to enjoy watching because you're watching a lot of stuff. You're sanitizing this and sanitizing that and doing research and all this other fun stuff. But to kind of get back to the whole competition stuff, have you ever kind of score sheet where you just disagreed with the judges' findings?
No, and
Okay.
so I want to, because I take it personal, but I'm always, whenever I get a score sheet that doesn't reflect what I think it does,
Hmm.
I don't make excuses for the beer. I try to find value in whatever they say, and oftentimes like I'll drink a beer while I'm reading a score sheet to see like what
Mm.
if it rings true.
Yeah,
And
that's a good point.
a lot of times, like, I'll read stuff where it's like, oh, this is, tastes like cardboard or paper, or it's
Yeah.
inoxidized. And I shouldn't say that happens a lot. That's from when I first started entering competitions and really kind of made me buckle down on packaging.
Hmm.
I want to take all of these. I want to take every score sheet that I get as seriously as I possibly can, and find um, the threads that really weave themselves, that really kind of like cross. So if I'm entering a beer, which I have been doing for the last 3-4 years now, I'll enter a beer and I'll enter into multiple competitions. What are the common threads that I'm seeing across
Okay.
all of the judges?
Hmm.
That I think is really important to making sure that like you're getting consistency in your
Hmm.
beer and making the improvements that are really valid improvements to make. And I can't think of a score sheet unless it's like, a score sheet where someone is lazy and writes like great job, which that happens sometimes. Or, too astringent. It's like, well, why? What do you think? Why do you think that is?
I need info, man.
Yeah, like a little too hoppy. Okay, thanks. So that type of stuff. Mostly most of the BJCP judges that I've seen, especially in the last 3 or 4 years, were people who have been dedicated to the craft and are really into it. They really put a lot of time and effort into the score sheets, which is a huge labor when you're doing this over and over. And I do find that there's always going to be something that I can pin from one beer to another. And maybe it's not common across all of the score sheets I'm getting, but if two say something, then I'm paying attention. If three or four
Right.
say
Yeah.
something, then I'm like, oh, that's really something I got to work on here.
Right on.
And that's one of the reasons why I find that really, really helpful, the
So,
process.
so you said that you've done some judging yourself. You're not the
Yeah.
BJCP judge.
Uh-huh.
So when you were judging other people's beer, were you taking notes on their stuff, like how to improve what you were making?
That's a great question. No. Can't say that I was ever taking notes on what they were doing to improve mine. I mean, there's always those remarkable beers that you try when you're judging though. You're like, wow, this is good. I wish I could make something like this. And then maybe later on it inspires me to brew that style, or if I've brewed that style before, to try to emulate something that I really liked about that beer. But more mental notes, not something that I'm like, jotting down on the
Right.
side of,
Yeah.
on my own scorecard.
There you go. This is more of a personal question for myself. Like, so how are you shipping your beers to be judged?
Okay, so I use and I swear by them because they never break.
Okay.
Whale pod shippers.
Whale pod.
They Yeah. So the Master Homebrewer program, I think it was the first and second year when they first started it, they offered all of these discounts, and
Mm-hmm.
one of them was through whale pod shippers, which are you can get for bottles. So you can get, I get usually a bunch of boxes that hold either 4 bottles or 6 bottles, depending on how many entries I'm getting. They all come all like, pre-assembled with 3 foam separators in each one of the packages. So they're held together at the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
they're held together in the middle, and they're held together at the top by really sturdy foam, soft. So it's like on the top,
Mm-hmm.
very bottom, and in the middle. And I've never had any breakage whatsoever. I have had bottles break before when I was shipping with other stuff, even though I felt like I was spending just absurd amounts of money getting boxes and bubble wrap and tape and doing all of this process to get these things as secure as
Mm-hmm.
possible. And the only time I had a problem with whale pod ships, and it wasn't actually whale pod, it was I sent something. There was a massive freeze, I think, 3 years ago, and I sent something to. I think it was called the Winter Warmer. It was a Circuit of America competition in Milwaukee,
Okay.
and it got below freezing, where it was in the single digits, and the bottles were so cold that they broke, and I just wasn't able to enter them in the competition on time. They did say resend them, but um, I didn't want to package and resend
You
at that
don't,
point.
you don't go through all that stuff. Yeah, because I was kind of curious. Yeah, because I was like, because I've shipped beer to other people before, but I was like, how would I do that for like competitions? And I think I just end up using like UPS or something like that. Just
Yep.
use
And
them
I
as
do
my
use
carrier.
I do use private shippers, and yeah, I use, I mean, you can't send it USPS, that's illegal. The policy of a lot of the private shippers is don't send alcohol. I label them as if, as I'm sending glass. And if, the one that broke and I say this because it's not a lie. When what broke, I actually had the shipping agency, the shipping company call me and say like, "Are you shipping beer?" And I said, "No, I'm shipping yeast samples," which is accurate. There is yeast in there, and they are samples.
Okay.
So that's the way I think.
Yep.
That's the way that I've gone anyway. As silly
There
as
you
that
go.
sounds.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just a starter. All right, so let's get into some of your Belgian beers right here, because I'm pretty curious about those as well too, and brewing with honey as well. So, what draws you to the Belgian style?
Well, that's, I think, when I first dove into craft beer
Mm-hmm.
outside of American lagers, international pale lagers, and some of the initial offerings that were coming around when I was first getting into beer. I remember the first time I tried a Belgian beer, and it figuratively knocked my socks off. I was like, I can't believe this is as delicious as it is, and I've really loved drinking and brewing Belgian beers since I tried it. I remember the first Belgian beer that I tried was an Omegang through Philosophers,
Okay. Yep.
and mass produced. They're pretty much everywhere on the
Mm-hmm.
East Coast, and really dove down a rabbit hole with the offerings that Omegang made. And then at the time, as brewers were popping up, you were actually seeing quite a few Belgian offerings in the 2013,
Mm-hmm.
2014, 2015. A lot of breweries were brewing saisons or brewing especially Belgian dark strong
Yeah.
ales, triples, Belgian golden strong ales that I very much enjoyed that phase of American brewing culture where they were just everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, I think because of that, that's when I was able to get my system kind of established.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I did really start brewing quite a bit of because um, there was so much variance in them was saisons,
Right.
and then some of the lower alcohol Belgian beer, so like Belgian singles, things like
Mm-hmm.
that. So that's I think there's it's I've been hard pressed to say when my when my kegerator hasn't had a keg of some type of Belgian beer in it, whether it's a saison or in the last, I'd say like 5, 6, 7 years, some type of beer de garde that I've brewed, because
Hmm.
that's one of my favorite styles as well. Is are the really the different variations of beer de garde.
So with the honey aspect with these Belgian beers, are you substituting that with for the what's it called, like the dark candy sugars that a lot of people use for like the Belgian beers? Is that your kind of go
So
to?
I have actually done it for blonde beers, amber beers, as well as the brown Belgian beers as well. I've used it really across the board, and I really wouldn't have done this if I hadn't read about an experiment that Michael Tonsmere did, the mad fermentationist, on his blog, where he did some different honeys for different beers and really
Hmm.
talked about the different flavor aspects of each varietal
Yeah.
honey, which I found fascinating. And for my wedding, one of my friends and I brewed. This was when I didn't have like a complete system. We did it all on his system over 2 days. We brewed 20 gallons of honey oatmeal porter
Sounds delicious.
for the wedding gift, and it clocked in. I think it was like 7.88%.
Okay.
And each 5 gallon batch had a different honey varietal added. And when we
Oh.
bottled them all, we put like a white cap or a red cap
Hmm.
or a green cap so we could know each one. And the buddy who I was brewing with was really skeptical that this was going to have any impact in the beers whatsoever. And I think it was around 12, 13% honey in each one of the beers to bring that ABV up. And even in a dark beer, I really thought I kind of agreed with him, but I wanted to play with it as well. Even with the roasted grains and that dark profile that you get with the porters,
Hmm.
um, the honey varietals they shone through, and each one of them had a really unique flavor that added to the beer. Some were like had hints of cinnamon, some
Hmm.
had hints of marshmallow, some had hints of sweet candy.
Hmm.
Really interesting varietals, and so it was pretty cool. We gave them all away, a vast majority of them away during the wedding as kind of like the welcome gifts.
Hmm.
And then we had, I'd say, 20 or 30 small bottles left over from what we wanted to keep to enjoy ourselves. And then we both entered them into competitions. And that was actually the one that won the first competition. Was the got an honorable mention
Yeah,
in
that's awesome.
for that beer, which really kind of said like, oh, maybe I can do this. Maybe this is something I can do that's competition outside of swimming, water polo, or whatever else I was doing.
So what you're saying is you've always had the competitive drive.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I've always been a rather competitive person, really into playing sports and competing with friends, playing on teams.
Yeah.
And this was just as I got older, and that aspect of my life has taken a back seat. It's still something that I can do here and there to make myself feel good, get a ribbon,
Yeah.
and kind of showcase that I can still do stuff. Maybe not as physical as I used to do before,
Yeah,
but
right.
I can still compete in other stuff.
Exactly. So do you have like a go-to honey that you prefer over many, or are you, or depending on the Belgian style you're going for, you have particular honeys that you use for those?
I've mostly been still experimenting with them. There is
Okay.
one though that I do like. So there's a bunch of different like varietal honeys that are out there that all give different things. There's some High Plains clover honey that I think is probably the favorite that I've had so far. I've used it in a beer de garde. I've used it in a Belgian dark strong. That for some reason the honey flavor is not delicate enough that like it's gonna disappear behind the esters
Mm,
of the Belgian beer,
right.
but it's still enough there where you're getting this really nuanced honey profile that's floral and sweet and rich, and really complex that
Right.
adds,
Yeah.
I think, really adds something to the beer that if I'm entering, especially if I enjoy myself, but if I'm entering into a competition, I find possibly sets it
Hmm.
apart. And I've never heard, unless I list it, I've never actually had a judge come back and say, did you add honey to this?" Which I found interesting because I can pick it up. Um, because I know it's there. But
Right.
I think when it's layered in correctly within the recipe, it can really make a unique and a really enjoyable beer.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like it. So kind of like an advice question. So what's the one mistake that people might make with when brewing with honey?
Mine has been balance, and I think this goes into like the mead making, which I've delved into in the last year, is knowing how much honey is going to impact your beverage and what is just not going to do anything at all. So if I'm brewing like a saison that calls for, a pound of, candy syrup or sugar or something like that, adding honey, if I add a pound of honey, it's gonna add like, a little bit of honey character, not a lot, but if I'm adding like a little bit more, like maybe instead of a pound and a half, I'll get to that sweet spot. So I think it's like finding that sweet spot with your beer. I brewed I don't know if we call it brewing, but I made a mead last year, my first big batch of mead, and I back sweetened it so much that I think it finished at it was a 15%, but it was so sweet and so cloying. I really had trouble drinking. In fact, I want to say 3.5 gallons of the 5 gallon batch to a friend of mine who is into making cocktails, and he's been using it to
Hmm.
adding it to cocktails to use it to make mead cocktails, but it's diluted with
Hmm.
other fun stuff in there as well. So
That's actually pretty cool.
yeah, I mean it got used, right,
Yeah,
which is great.
exactly.
But
Yeah.
it was an example. It was telling to me like, don't go over the top on this. Like you
Right.
need to have your limits here. Don't just assume that adding more honey is going to make it delicious, because it didn't. It made it so that it was just over the top honey, over the top sweet, and it just wasn't appropriate for the
Hmm.
meat I was making. And I would say for beer, like you probably have a little bit more wiggle room, because it's getting layered into other
Hmm.
grains that have their own flavor profiles, and yeast as well, that are going to react with the honey a little bit differently. And I would just encourage people who are gonna do it just to play with different honeys.
Hmm.
Um, there's some great honey wholesalers online
Hmm.
that I shouldn't say wholesalers, but sellers online that can really give you you can really get a lot of different honey varietals and they'll tell you there, like, these are honey experts. Here's what it should taste like. So, you're gonna get meadow foam honey, and it's gonna taste like, there's gonna be a predominant marshmallow flavor that comes with that. So think about that if you are brewing with honey,
Yeah.
like what are the expert apiarists or apiists, the people who are making and collecting the honey, what are they saying about the honey? What are they saying about where it's coming from? Are there changes from year to year in the honey that's taking place? Kind of like the hops that we're getting. Like,
Right.
is the Citra 2025 batch as good as the 2024 batch? I don't know. I don't really
Hmm.
brew with Citra that much anyway, but but that's something for people who use like hops, it's kind of a comparison. Like, there's the terroir of honey, similar to the grains, can be quite different. I have had what's the honey? So orange blossom honey. Orange
Hmm.
blossom honey. I've had batches of orange blossom honey that is incredibly fragrant, very citrusy. That is just wonderful to use. And I've had some that's not been as strong or had
Right.
other flavors in there as well. People who use buckwheat honey at all, there'll be a people will tell you very very clear up front, like the West Coast buckwheat honey is much more usable than the East Coast buckwheat honey, which is like, and I've had this. I've added buckwheat honey from the East Coast to a cider that I brewed a few years ago, and it was good, but it had like a very much more of a barnyard, hay,
Okay.
grass, a little bit over the top flavor that I
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
expecting. And I've heard the West Coast is like that, but a little bit more subdued and almost like that grassy, like good grassy that you get from like a saison or something like that, or
Right. Yeah. That's kind
you
of what I
know.
was thinking of when you brought up that flavor profile to it. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, you're gonna get a kick out of Garrett's interview because some of the stuff you brought up and what he talked about, it's gonna contradict a little bit. So it's gonna be
Interesting. I
yes,
was
yeah.
I it's so since I'm on, I'm hoping he reads as well. He has his channel has been fantastic, a huge
Oh,
inspiration for me
that's
to
awesome.
deviate from brewing beer.
Hmm.
I'm really excited to see what he says, and I would really encourage him to keep the content coming because
Oh,
I
dude.
love learning more and more about mead. He has been a fantastic gateway and transition from beer into mead, and actually most recently winemaking as well, which I just made first couple batches of wine that are sitting in my
Nice. That's
couple
awesome, man.
couple of my fermenters. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to ruin anything, but like, so you're going to be pretty interested when you listen to that podcast. He brings up a lot of really cool stuff that kind of blew my mind from being an home brewer to that. Like, yeah. So we're gonna deviate off that that topic because I feel like I want to say more about it, but I don't want to. So we're gonna get into your Franken system, which I just love the name of it. So your Franken system is a hybrid propane electric 3 vessel system. Like,
Yes.
kind of walk me through that. Like, how'd you end up with a hybrid system? I guess was this intentional by accident? A little bit of both.
I think a little bit of both,
Okay.
putting together, and this was so. I love my system because it's carried me like it's made so much beer for me. It's made really good beer, and I
Yeah.
have it really dialed in. I started putting together the system that I have now. I want to say in 2016, and scrapping together like old kegs
Mm.
and kettles and equipment from friends of mine that were just like not using anymore, had graduated, or were just getting out of the hobby. And so I had in my mind, and this was back in the time when I was diving quite deeply into like homebrew talk, which was one of the early resources I think for a lot of homebrewers. I know it's still there. I'm sure it's a fantastic resource, but I would see these sculptures and ideas that people would build, and they looked beautiful, and it seemed like they could do everything, all and it's these 3 vessel systems, herms, and these
Hmm.
herm systems that were massive, and the welding and the work that went into developing these. I'm like, okay, like this is stuff I should learn. I want to learn how to do it, and I'll do it. Well, I never really got that far. And so what I ended up doing was I bought from a guy who about an hour away from me was going pro, and he had essentially a huge brewing rig table made out of stainless steel
Hmm.
with all of the plumbing for the gas to go into it, as well as a holder for a heat exchanger for when you're doing heat exchange, as well as a place to hold 2 pumps. And so I took everything I could, the hot liquor tank, the brew kettle, and the mash tun, and put it all on there and started hooking stuff up to
Hmm.
the best I could. And the idea was when I first started doing this, and I was brewing in a cooler at the time
Hmm.
and fermenting in carboys in a fermentation chamber. And the idea was I'm going to have this massive herm system set up. And so I got everything set up to the best of my ability. And the first couple of batches I made, it just felt too out of control. I didn't have enough control over the system that I have now. And so I was like, okay, I got to scale this back. And so I actually ended up going with a rim system, which I still use to this day. I went through, I have a small electronic box. It goes through an electric coil, heating element, and recirculates. It then goes to, I pump it over to the kettle when it's done. And then I use a manifold that goes from the hot liquor tank that sits on top of the grain bed
Hmm.
that pumps sparge water onto
Okay.
that from. So there is a part where I do run 2 pumps, but mostly I'm just
Hmm.
running 1 pump. And even now, like I question the efficacy of using the sparge, knowing that there's other methods out there where like I've read on the Mad Fermentationist where he's like, I produced this, fantastic beer and I cold sparged. I just took water and just, dumped it on top to drain all the sugars off of the mash and get it there. And I was shocked by that. But I have this system, I have it set
Hmm.
up, it's dialed in. I'm sure there are faster and maybe better ways to do it than using the hot liquor tank and the system I have, but it is what it is, and it works. And
It's
and I
awesome.
do like it. It's pretty cool, and if you want, I can send you some pictures
Yeah,
of
send
it
me
so you can
pictures out. Yeah, I'll kind of pop them in the video. I think it'd be really
pop them in
cool.
here so you
Yeah.
kind of see what it looks like. But So the kettle is propane, the mash tun, or sorry, the kettle's propane, the hot liquor tank is propane, and then the mash tun is electric. That's the one electric element where
Okay.
I'm doing the rims and recirculating. So there is that, and I built all of this, or I shouldn't say built because I didn't do all too much building. It's just small stuff here and there. But I put all this stuff together with all of these like doodads and pumps and everything. And then the following year, the all-in-one system started coming out, and I
Yeah.
remember seeing these things advertised, thinking to myself, like, son of a like,
You're right.
why did these come out now? And I've been putting this together for 3 years. So my my system, it's personal to me. It's something that I've had unchanged for, I want to say, just the brewing part, not the fermentation, but the brewing part for, I'd say, 5, 6, about 7 years now. Yeah, about 7, 8 years now. And it's something that, because it's mine
Hmm.
and I'm the one who knows how to run it,
Yep.
um, that's what I like about it. But like, if I told my wife, if I ever went to a one vessel system, I don't know how I would get rid of all of this stuff, because no one else is going to want this. Everyone can just easily go to
Oh, that's
the
true.
the
Yeah.
one in system. But
Mm.
it is what it is. It's what I have, and I'll continue to use it as long as I'm brewing, and as long as it's
Well,
functional.
heck yeah. I mean, why not? Yeah, I've debated a few different times about doing all in one. My buddy has an all in one up in Michigan, and they go up there like that's where I'm originally from. So I go up there at least once a year or so. So I would like to try brewing at least one time just to see what it's like. But I do like my brewing a bag. I'm already used to it. I do kind of like the dance of like kicking on the propane, kicking the back off, and also staying in that mash and wrapping my whole kettle up with like a big old heavy blanket, trapping the heat. So I kind of like again, like I know my system. I know how it works. But
Exactly.
during the
Yeah.
winter months, it'd be kind of nice to have an all in one that is electric. Don't have to sit there and do the dance, right? Just
Tell me about
set it
it.
and forget it.
I brewed yesterday. When I started brewing, it was in the high 20s, and I was
Ooh.
banking, I know, and I'm out in my garage, and I'm banking on it getting above freezing so I can use the garden hose to run the
Oh
heat
yeah,
exchanger.
right.
And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be 35 pretty soon. I hope it doesn't drop by the time I'm doing the heat exchange.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. Yeah. So I guess you'd, yeah, that's
But
funny.
it's funny, hearing about what you said about your system and like wrapping it up, and
Yeah.
these are all those are things that I've done as well, as like with all my with the beers. It's like those small little things. And that's one of the things, like, I have such great core memories from homebrewing, doing those types of things and coming up with those types of solutions to, like, kind of pivot from, like, what you're doing, and making it really kind of unique, and making, like, that's one of the cool things that I love about brewing, is like, this system is mine. If I showed this to somebody, like, they could probably make a beer, but make a really bad beer off this, because they don't know all, like, the ins and outs of how this works. And, like, the way you were talking about your system, it's like it's something that is part of, like, your hobby and what you
Hmm.
do, and it's, like, very personal, and one of the things that I really like about the
Right.
craft.
Yeah. So you mentioned some disasters. You brought up like a leaky kegerator, rims tube charring, temperature malfunctions. I kind of want to talk about like the rims tube charring incident a little bit. So what happened
Yeah,
there?
so this has happened twice now,
Okay.
and it hasn't happened in about 5 years, and I've had where the rims the wort has charred, in circulation
Hmm.
with the electric elements. And looking back, I think both times I just didn't have my pump valve open wide enough, and it just wasn't flowing as fast enough around that, or something happened where I had to stop the mash. One of the times I know it was this. One of the times there was a problem. It was, I think, something was stuck, and the wort sat in the rims tube, and I just forgot to turn the system off.
Hmm.
So it's sitting there burning,
Hmm.
and charring on the rims, and you don't think about it until afterwards. And so,
Right.
like, I think I had one of them was, unfortunately, like, a big beer it was a triple that I was brewing, and I still put it in the fermenter and let it age,
Hmm.
and looked beautiful, tasted like an ashtray.
Oh
Just
gosh.
fell apart. And the other one was a German Pils, which I was incredibly excited about. I had this, like, really cool hot profile where I had, like, a bit of Mandarina Bavaria at the end to give it kind of like just a little bit of New World flavor, but using those traditional noble hops as well, that I was really excited about. same thing. Put it in the fermenter, I let it ferment and lager for I think like 3 months, and I tasted it and I was like, oh, it's a
Yeah.
waste of my,
Yep.
waste of huge waste of my time. All this happened when I had kids too, so like this the time that you have and you're wasting on this type of stuff is really, really precious, and you're like, oh, I can't believe I wasted, that much time and fermentation space
Yes.
for something that you have to dump.
You have to dump it. Yeah, yeah. I've had to dump a couple of beers. The one got infected, and I still can't figure out how it got infected. But it was like a baby diaper. It was just horrible.
Oh,
I have
yeah.
no idea what happened to it. The other one, it wasn't really infected. It just didn't taste good. I didn't understand what was wrong. I was trying to make a what was I trying to make? I'm drawing a blank now. So the Heffy was the one that got infected. The other one, oh, I was trying to make like a Blue Moon kind of clone. Because I enjoy Blue Moon on tap. I think Blue Moon on tap is one of those like favorite little, restaurant beers to get. Minus the orange. I'm not a fan of the orange because the whole thing kind of grosses me out because who knows who's already touched this thing 1,000
Yeah.
times and whatever. So like, yeah, so I was making this Blue Moon clone. It didn't taste really well. So you said, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna dump this anyways. Let me throw in some oranges into it anyways. So I sliced up a bunch of oranges, tossed it in there, and I let it sit for like, I think about like a week just to marinate basically. And it was like, I couldn't even describe it. It was just, bitter, disgusting. I was like, all right, fine, whatever. It was a neat little experiment, so I had to pitch that as well too. So those are like, I think 2 fails that I've had. Besides, like I said before, like I don't mind like pouring off a pint or two just to get rid of the beer just to make a new one. Because I have my board over here. I have a list of stuff I want to try. Like I have a pineapple mead I want to try to make. There's a strawberry mango cider I want to make. I wanted to redo a barley wine because that didn't turn out really good. A cloche. I've not made a cloche that tasted good yet either. So I have like a list of stuff that does like 2026 beers I want to make, or well, beverages anyways.
Do you have
Um,
it? Do you plan yours out like through the year? Like I have recipes that like when I'm bored, if I have time, I'll hop on my computer and I'll scale out recipes. If I had my druthers, if I can get
yes,
all of my if I had everything lined up perfectly, here's what my brewing schedule would look like for the year.
I try to. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I did as well, and I find it really fun.
Yes.
I try to prep as much as I can. Like, okay, honey, I'm gonna brew on this day with this, so I can because I want to brew this on this
Right.
stage. Yeah, okay.
So when the Atlantic, was it Atlantic Ale House or Atlantic Ale Supply House or whatever they're called, they're out of Raleigh. They shut down last year, I think, about a year ago now. By the time I saw their sale, I think all they had left were hops. So I bought like as much hops as I possibly could. I still have I have one, but I have so many like experimental hops, like they didn't have names. Like QZE3-475 or whatever. Like means
Yeah,
nothing,
like
right?
HBC 300 and two
So
or
yeah,
something.
so
Yeah.
stuff like that, right? So I have all these like experimental hops that I've like smash beers. This is just a category just to kind of see what they are because they actually have names now. I've re-looked them up. So like one has like papaya notes to it. So that would make it pretty
Oh,
interesting, like tropical hazy IPA maybe, or some type of tropical blonde ale. But I think just maybe just doing a smash beer just to see what that actually brings to the table by itself. Like have a bunch of two row that I can just kind of go through. Maybe make a gallon batch just to see what would actually taste like, and then I can use it for something different later on. So
yeah, that's really cool. I remember I did that. I did a pale ale with Sabro when it was still had some experimental name at the time, and
yep,
people were talking about like you wouldn't believe the tropical coconut flavors. I was like, coconut hops? That sounds so odd.
yeah.
And so I did a smash with it, and yeah, it's pretty apparent if you get a good batch of Sabro that it's smashing in the mouth with coconut. It's a fantastic flavor.
Right.
Really lovely
No,
hop.
that's actually brings up a good idea. So I might jot that down actually because I made a coconut stout, like almost like a pastry stout for like a friend of mine, and it turned out good. The only bad thing is I didn't tie the hop bag tight enough when I put actual in the coconut shaved coconut in there. So actually having the hops that provides that flavor, I may not have to do that. So what happened was a lot of the coconut got loose and got into the wort and as it was fermenting and stuff like that. So like the first couple beers were pretty good, but after a while they got kind of rank.
Kind of vegetal, I'm
Yeah,
assuming.
so it was
Yeah.
gross. It was so bad, so bad. But it was fun. Again, it was me still trying to learn. Because he loves barrel aged beers. So I was trying to figure out how to make something like that. And I think I ended up pouring like, I don't know, like a pint of like Jim Beam into it as well too, to kind of give it like a little
Yeah,
bit of
that'll do the trick.
a again, it's all learned. And I like to experiment as well too. I think that's another fun thing about this hobby. There's a lot of little things we can do to tweak to make things a little bit better. Sometimes worse. It's part
Yeah,
of the game.
sometimes worse, and or just like, a little bit different. Like
Yeah.
I've told people in the homebrew club. I remember during COVID, I was talking about brewing Belgian beers, and I
Yeah.
said I was like, yeah, I don't really use like the rock candy or sugar or anything like that. I've actually been using honey, and there were people that were like shocked.
Right. Mind
Really?
blown.
That's what you do? I'm like, yeah, it works, and it for my flavor profile, it's something I really enjoy, and been
Hmm.
able to dial it in. So yeah, it's that's the cool thing about experimentation. It's not for
Yeah.
everybody, but there's so much stuff that you can learn.
Right. So we've been kind of talking about like recipe development right here. So as you're going through some of your recipes or experimentations, are you digging into like the spec sheets and stuff like that to try to see, like, we were talking about hops, or like, oh, this brings like a coconut flavor or papaya, or this grain has this certain type of biscuit note to it. Like, so are you really meticulous when it comes to trying to figure this stuff out, or is it more intuitive nowadays that you've been doing for so long?
I wouldn't say intuitive unless
Okay.
it's like, yeah, a grain. Like there are definitely grain companies that I tend to gravitate towards. So I really love Wireman grains, the bark varieties of their Pilsner, Vienna, and Munich malts.
Hmm.
If I can get my hands on those for a good price, I will almost exclusively use those for
Ah,
base malts for anything that is not requiring like two row or something specific like Maris Otter or
right.
Golden Promise, something like that.
Hmm.
But there are things like will look up if my local homebrew store has something that is a little bit different. I will look at it and see what the specs are, you know, how viable the grain, not viable, but what is the how much you're going to get out of the grain,
Yeah.
what the flavor profiles are, and they're pretty spot on. I've had there's a grain, a maltster here in Maryland called, I think, Bear Branch, which I've used a few times. That has been really remarkable. I've made really good beers with
Hmm.
them over the past year. That especially when I haven't had the opportunity to pick up any wiremen, they've been fantastic, and it makes me kind of wonder, why do I need to pay for wiremen when I have something local I can support? Same with, and I don't know if they're still as available as they used to be, but Mecca grade malts from California
Okay.
have been really fantastic malts that I've gotten access to. And then um, most of the time, I'm not really deviating too much from yeasts that I already know, unless it's a yeast I can't get my hands on. And there is one yeast that White Labs creates that I can't get anywhere else, and it's a platinum strain that is my favorite yeast, and it's so hard. It's WLP 072. It's their French. I think it's called their French Country Ale
Okay.
yeast,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's every once in a while they'll produce some, or the my local homebrew store will be like, hey, we got packages of it because a local brewery pr- ordered a huge amount of it, which is rare nowadays. And there's and White Labs offered us some extra vials or packets of that
That's
stuff as
cool.
well. So yeah, it's the hop stuff. I'm not
Hmm.
really making that much hoppy stuff unless
Right.
it's I'm diving into like competitions that I haven't brewed
Hmm.
before, and most of that is because my packaging for hops is just not. It's just something I got to work on, is nailing down the cold side oxidation
Okay.
around packaging. I'm pretty good, but I'm not perfect, and those nuances, especially at the higher levels of competition, are
Hmm.
really going to bite you.
Right. Yeah. So you brought up White Labs. So if you do go to the National Homebrew Competition in Nashville, North Carolina, you'll have to go to White Labs.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So
I want to go there just to be like, do you have any of this on hand?
right.
The WLP 072, because it's such a cool yeast. Apparently it's like the Genlain strain from Eastern France, like near the border with Belgium. That is kind of like the heart for beer, like the
Hmm.
original Beer de Garde.
Yeah.
And I've used that when I can get it, and it produces just some of the best beer to guards I've ever had. I've dabbled here and there with other yeast, but that is really the best.
Yeah, so I also heard they have phenomenal pizza too they make there. So if you're just you want a
Oh,
pizza as well.
White Labs.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah. So like White Labs is it's pretty close to the downtown district and probably just get an Uber or whatever. But like from there you can hit so many different breweries because one cool thing about Asheville, like all the brewery not all of them, but a bulk of the breweries are like within like a block of each other. Like you can just walk to all the different breweries. You can go to Green Man, Eyewire. There's a few cideries. I'm drawing up like another Burial's phenomenal. I don't know if you ever had Burial beer or not, but
I've
Burial's
had burial beer given to me, like
okay.
brought back
Yeah, it's
from
really,
Asheville, and
really
they're
good
like,
stuff.
"Oh,
Yeah.
yeah." Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, burial's
It's
fantastic."
really, really good. Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Sadly, they lost one because of the floods of Helene. That was down by the river. That one's gone. But yeah, there's a lot of cool ones. There's a pretty cool place called, and I'll get back here to what we're supposed to be talking about, but it's called Thirsty Monk, and it's
Oh,
3 levels of libation. So like the main level is like a beer and cocktails. The top level is like your high end cocktails, but the basement's where all their Belgian beers are sold at. So it's like it looks like a cellar. It's kind of dark and dim lit as you walk in and stuff like that. And they have all these really cool Belgian beers on tap. Just kind of throw that out there for you. when
no,
you
that's cool. If we do see each other at
for
HomebrewCon this year,
sure. Yeah.
maybe we grab a a pint there.
100%. So let's kind of get to the DC Homebrewers homebrew club. Actually, you've talked about a few times now. Like, how big is this club? Would you say?
So the DC Homebrewers Club is rather interesting because I wouldn't call it a traditional homebrew club.
Okay.
It's and this is something that I didn't learn until I started joining and learned how different it was than the other homebrew clubs. So DC Homebrewers Club is they do have monthly meetings where you have the opportunity to come
Mm,
on and drink beers and share beers and compete, give your beers to other people, which is fantastic. And that's actually when I first started going to DC Homebrewer Club meetings. um, that was the primary impetus for me going was I wanted to taste what other people were brewing who weren't
right.
like my good pals who said everything you brew is really good, and I wanted to get some like feedback and nuance. I wanted to see what other people were brewing, and there are brewers and there are longtime members who are specialists in like brewing goose and
Mm,
like lambics, like things that are like no one else is brewing.
right.
Guys who are really good at making. There's one guy who is phenomenal at making oatmeal stouts and American brown ales. And the others just have their other, their specialties, and that's one of the things that I really appreciate about the club. But the interesting thing is, at those meetings, like you'll get anywhere from like 10 people to 50 people,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
the vast community is actually online. There's a massive listserv, and there's a Facebook group that I
Mm,
think has about 1,000 to 500, 1,000 to 1,500 people, and a lot of the information sharing is being done on there. And
okay.
so when I was on social media, I'm not anymore, but I was using it quite a bit for resources. Hey, does anyone have a spare keg? Does anyone have uh, an extra couple ounces of special B lying around that I can use because the homebrew store is closed? And someone is always going to like pull through.
Yeah, that's
Or
awesome.
hey, my Kolsch, I'm using this specific yeast. Does anyone have experience with this? What fermentation profile do you suggest for this type of thing?
Hmm.
And letting me know about that. And that's where I found it really, really useful. And there are like a core group of individuals within DC homebrewers who,
Hmm.
even off to the side, I'm texting with constantly,
That's
dropping
awesome.
by their house, talking to them and seeing what they're doing.
Hmm.
And that's part of the community that I really value, especially the guys that are pretty serious about competing and have the ability to do that. I'm always trying to track where they're competing, what they're brewing,
Right.
and I want to hear the feedback that they're getting
Mm.
as well. Because
Okay.
there are times when I've had their beers and I'm like, okay, I'm tasting this. What are the judges saying about it? And the judges might say something really different, and it's something that I didn't pick up, the brewer didn't pick up, but it's something that's like maybe if we revisited this or like retasted this, like we could pick that stuff up, especially when you're sending it to the bigger competitions with the heavyweight judges.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a very large group. So I belong to in my general area, like I said, I'm in Northeast Tennessee, so it's not like huge population over here. So I want to say on Facebook, this says we have over 300 members, but I feel like a lot of them are just bots. I think they just signed up when it was wide open, and now we have like restrictions on this, so we need to clean that up. But most meetings, I'd say there's at least a dozen to about maybe 25 ish. The other one is like the OG. It started back in 1995 in this general area. A lot of the original members have all retired out. There's not many people that show up anymore. Sadly, one time I showed up, I was the only one there. So that was kind of interesting. But I was told when I joined that one, they're not really into teaching anymore because they're all kind of like retired from it. But they still give me a lot of good feedback. I mean, collectively, there's probably 300 years of knowledge sitting there in that group alone because they've been brewing like 30, 40 years. I've tried some crazy styles, like the craziest one I've ever had, and I'm dying to get his recipe. It's the apple butter sizer.
Oh,
This was like 16%, and it was a dessert in a cup. You didn't need much more than like an ounce of it. Like it was just so strong, but it was so good and it lingered forever. Like you couldn't watch your cup enough to get this deal, the smell and taste out of it. This gentleman who found a 5-gallon keg of it later on turned it into apple brandy, basically. And
wow.
that was so tasty, so good.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. So kind of want to get into like a little bit of advice section here, and I'll kind of keep this one a little bit brief, but I think this is a pretty good question for most people I've asked so far. Like, if someone is new who wants to try to get into this hobby, where do you think they should start at?
Oh man. If they know someone who brews, ask them. Because I think they're like the person that's the local resource to them is going to be the most helpful. I have stewarded along a couple people
Oh,
who
nice.
have, you know, picked it up and kept going, and others who have, done a couple batches and been like, that was fun. And that's cool. But I think that's the good starting spot. And if you don't, there are so many good resources online, especially on YouTube, to get you started. I mean, we brought up man-made mead already. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if you're thinking about doing mead,
Mm-hmm.
what a great place to start. He has a 101, 102, 103, 104 series that goes through all the way from this is your first time hearing about mead and here's how you do it to here's, advanced mead making techniques,
Mm-hmm.
which is really fascinating. And if
Mm-hmm.
you go online, there are archives of stuff on YouTube that can really, get you started out in something really simple, even using stuff where like, you might have a 1-gallon jug lying around. You can order some dry malt or liquid malt extract online, as well as some hops and a packet of yeast, and get going.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty simple. It's a pretty simple process to do, and I think it's just take it at your own speed and um, don't get overwhelmed. That'd be my advice. And if you are teaching someone, don't like my instinct is always like, and I have to dial it back is push hard because like I want them to learn everything that I know and pass
Yeah.
this on and always trying to temper myself and the amount of information that they can take and that they can absorb before they ask for more or do require more information.
Right. So like when I had one guy come over once and kind of go through the whole process with it, and I told him I was going to treat him like a 5-year-old. And I said, if it's too low level, let me know and I'll kind of ramp it up a little bit. But I think he appreciated the 5-year-old level talk. Because like there's a lot of words that we use sometimes that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to people, right? I'm drawing a blank on one off the top of my head, but like I said, I just kept it really, really elementary. Like we're basically we're taking water, we're going to take grain. I didn't really get into what grains we're using, why I'm using these grains, what notes you're going to impart, and or smells you're going to get. It's like I'm going to take this crushed grain, I'm going to put it into this bag, I'm going to steep it like tea, and we're going to sit here for an hour, and we're going to talk about other things because that's all we have to do right now. And then they get to like the next step. Right now, we're going to turn this up to a boil. Then don't even explain that process really well. There's okay, now we're going to add hops and kind of tell, okay, the hops are going to take this sugary, syrupy stuff that we just made and kind of knock that down a little bit. So I didn't go into like alpha acids or anything like that because
Yeah.
they're just a little too much, right? For some people. But I did have them smell everything. I had them taste the grains, had him taste the yeast a little bit as well too, just to kind of get an idea of what this yeast may impart into beer we're going to make. And it was a beer they already had before they liked the mine, so it just kind of
But the
dissolved.
those steps that you're talking about, those
Yeah,
are the things that I think really can capture
yeah,
people. Like, who hasn't been on a brewery tour back in the day when they did
right.
those?
Yeah, it's not many
I don't know if they
anymore.
even do those anymore. But you would go and they'd say like, "Hey, here's grain," and they would pull it out of a bag or they'd have it in a cup there. Smell the grain. This is what what we want, and here's the hops. Here's the flavor of the hops that we want to impart here. Those type of things, and it's like those sensory things that I think are really important. That kind of people like get people interested and
Right.
attached and involved in these types of things. And yeah, I'm not when I was, stewarding people through the process, I was calling it oatmeal. I wasn't calling it the mash. I was just saying,
Okay,
"Hey,
fair enough.
we're making oatmeal
Yeah.
because that's something tangible." I wasn't
Yeah.
saying Vorloff.
Oh
I was
gosh,
saying,
yeah.
"Oh, we got yeah, we gotta." I'm actually just pulling water out of here and dumping it back on top to make it so it clears up a little bit.
Yep,
That's all. It
exactly.
makes the beer look prettier.
Yep. 100%. So another advice question. Someone who might be interested in getting into competitions, do you think they should wait until they quote unquote perfect their skill set, or just go for it and see what happens?
Go for it.
There you go.
I think that's what I did, and it's just so much fun, and I don't know, it's like when you get your scores back, it's like ripping open a pack of baseball cards. You just never know what you're gonna get, and it could be something really exciting, like or it could be something that is unexpected, and or it could be a dud.
Right.
You never know, and that's the cool thing about competitions is it's subjective, right? And even the judges, they're not perfect, so you're gonna
Hmm.
get different scores. But it's cool to see what common things they like or find fault in. Really across the board, and that's one thing that I really like about the competition piece, and you know, it makes you humble about your beer as well. Like there are beers that I've brewed where I'm like, this is great, and then I send it, and across the board, it's like r- people find it rather pedestrian,
Right.
and that's okay. And I've learned to deal with that, rather well. And um, that's one thing that I think is really cool about getting into competitions is there's something different in it for everybody.
Hmm.
To me, it's like I like getting it for the feedback now, and I like if I'm competing with a friend. Like there's one guy in DC Homebrewers who is a prolific competitor.
Okay.
He's within the Circuit of America. I think he finished in the top 10, which is remarkable. And I mean, that's you have to brew quite a bit for this and brew amazing beer. And so, when he's competing, I want to know how my beers score compared to
Hmm.
his. There are people within the Master Homebrewer program who are really well known, that are amongst the competitive homebrewers are almost household names. You know who these guys are, and
Wow.
if you're going into the competition against them, people who are grandmasters,
Yeah.
or like different levels of grandmaster, if you beat them, that feels really good, and that to me that says something about my skill level. What maybe it's
Mm-hmm.
not as nearly as developed as like these guys, but hey, I beat them once. Maybe I could beat them again. And I think that's one of the cool things about the competition community is like, especially within the Master Homebrewer program, is a lot of these people know each other. You see these same names, and you might not talk to them, but it's like you're trying to do better and be better than these guys and score better, and earn different ranks. And that's one thing that I've really appreciated about it. I love the gamification aspect of it.
Hmm. No, that was awesome.
It makes it so that like I can become a expert in Belgian beers and an award for that within the Master Homebrewer
Yeah,
competition.
that's
Or
so cool.
if you are one of the rare people to ever score a 50, you get out of 50 for a beer,
Yeah.
which is incredibly rare. That if that ever happens, you get a special award. So there's different things that keep you coming back and keep you
Hmm.
competing and keep you trying different styles of beer, mead, and cider. Which that's another thing is I don't think I would have dove into mead
Hmm.
if it weren't for probably man-made mead and the having mead within the Master Homebrewer program as some of the types of beverages that they're asking you to make in order to rank up. So it's I give credit to them and Garrett and his channel for doing quite a bit.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I think you've talked about so much. You pretty much had me convinced. I need to start looking into it. I've always wanted to try do competitions. I've not yet besides local, you just a homebrew club. I will pat myself on the back. I do make a pretty awesome apple pie cider that tastes like apple pie. It is so delicious. I really love it. And I want to see people. I want to be judged. I want to see what people have to say about it.
Yeah, you should send it
Yeah,
to Man Made Me too. That's one of his like
yeah.
primary recipes that he talks about is his apple. I think it's an apple pie or it's an apple cider that he is, I think, meddled with or not meddled, but like tweaked 7 or 8 times to really make it good. And I think he's scored really, really well with it. And he comes back to it as like one of his best as one of his best things. So yeah, that's one of mess. I've only been messing around with traditional meads,
Okay.
but my next step is to get into the fruited meads, and that's kind of first on my list is going to his recipe and making my own like little twists on what he's already perfected.
There you go. So we're going to get into the rapid fire questions. These are pretty much just one or the other, or just or a simple answer for the most part. So we're going to start off. The first one's pretty simple. Bottle or can?
Can.
And there you go. Competition brewing or casual brewing, which I think I already know the answer for this one, but
My gut says casual brewing because that's what got me into it, but
uh, good
I've
competition.
yeah, I'm a competitive brewer,
There you
so
go.
for me anyway, it's competitive brewing. That's what's really kind of kept me brewing and getting into new stuff.
100%, man. Hazy or clear?
Clear.
Clear. Favorite beer glass?
Probably a goblet,
Okay.
because I do like
Yeah.
drinking the Belgian beers out of the big goblets. There's my wife just broke it, unfortunately, and I think this is kind of a reason for us to go back, or for me to go back to Bruges. But I had a Degar
Mm-hmm.
big goblet that has they make one beer. It's their triple.
Mm-hmm.
That is just one of the most delicate, lovely, beautiful beers I've ever tasted.
Yeah.
It's one of those like core memories of like when you travel
Yep.
somewhere and drink a beer. And I bought one of their goblets and brought it home. And I whenever I drink a big Belgian beer, it's usually out of that,
There
or
you
it was out of that
Yeah, perfect. So see what's the next one. Next one is traditional Belgian yeast or modern strains.
traditional Belgian
There
yeast.
you go. Best competition you've ever entered.
National homebrew competition.
Okay.
Yeah, national homebrew competition. Back in the day. This was back in like I think the 2017, 18,
Okay.
19, when it was massive. I think those years there was between 8 and 10,000 people entering.
Yeah, that's insane.
It was big. It was big.
That's insane. One brewing trend you would like to see go away.
None of them.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can't say anything because the reason those trends are there is because someone likes it. And
Uh-huh.
I never want to poo-poo on what someone is looking to
Okay.
do or something that someone likes. I remember you know back in the day, people this is when I first started getting into home
Mm-hmm.
brewing, people really, really um, railed against like American lagers and like how boring lagers were. And I'm guilty. I hopped on that bandwagon and was like, yeah, these are so boring. I love lagers now, including American lagers. My neighbor was asking me the other day, it's like, what's your favorite, you know, summer beer? I'm like, a Coors Banquet, like
Exactly.
anytime.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, give me like put me in the sun
Yep.
after mowing the lawn
Log.
or
Yep.
doing yard work with a Coors Banquet,
Yeah.
and
Stubbies.
I'm really really happy. And there's a place for that. And I think with all these trends, like someone's still gonna like that, whether it's a milkshake IPA or it's, a dessert stout, a pastry
Mm-hmm.
stout, something like that.
Yep.
Like I don't think those things are sustainable, but there'll be someone at some point within the homebrewing community 10, 20 years from now probably going to brew something like that, and it's going to be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. So is there one trend you like to see come back?
Oh, I think I alluded to this earlier when we were talking, but when I was getting into craft beer, the the amount of Belgian beers that were available at local breweries it was just phenomenal. I am very, very lucky that my local brewery does specialize in Belgian and German Czech style beers, and
Okay.
their Belgian beer won gold at Great American. Their saison won gold at Great American Beer Festival in 2022. And they just had their Czech lager just
Hmm.
won gold at Great American Beer Festival this year, which is it's remarkable. I
Heck
feel
yeah.
so spoiled to have that like essentially next door.
Wow, that's awesome, man. All right, so we're gonna kind of wrap things up here. Just a few more questions. So, if there was a guest you would like to see me interview next, who would that be?
I have a few.
Yeah, okay.
Um, so one is probably the I would say either of them. Either Scott Janish or Michael Tonsmer from Sapwood Cellars. They are DC Homebrewer alum, and they went out and started a magnificent brewery
Okay.
in Maryland that makes hands down the best beer in Maryland, if not the Mid Atlantic. And really they just do everything so well. And I know I don't know Mike Tonsmere, I don't know Scott, but I know them from listening to them on podcasts, and they are fantastic guests with a really treasure trove of knowledge around not just brewing but home brewing in particular.
Okay.
And then the second one would probably be probably some leadership from the Master Homebrewer program. I can just some names off the top of my head. Matthew Harold, who is also he's a YouTuber or was for a while, doing Mean Brews, another fantastic channel.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael Rensing is part of leadership as well. Joe DeAria is the regional rep for the Northeast Mid Atlantic. I know he covers the area where I am at. I don't know if he's available to do podcasts or if any of those guys are able to do podcasts, but I would love to see,
Okay.
hear from those guys. And I know they've gotten on podcasts. Sorry, I know Matthew Harold has gotten on a podcast before and talked at length about the Master Homebrewer program. It's actually how I learned about the Master Homebrewer program is from
Okay.
that podcast, and one of the reasons why I joined. But those, I mean, if you want to learn about a lot more than what I can provide about competition brewing
Yep.
and really guys dialing it in and doing the work to make amazing competition beers, um, someone from MHP would be just fantastic.
All right. That's awesome. And
And then I will give one more plug because I
sure.
think so the head of my homebrew club,
Mhm.
he's the I think outgoing president now, but he's one of the best presidents we've ever had. Also an amazing competitive homebrewer, Cole Christian. Yeah, he is a really good home brewer, really well versed in just everything home brewing, and what it takes, I think, to run a successful club.
Okay.
That would be it, right up his alley as well. So those are my handful of folks that I
Yeah,
would.
there you go. That's perfect for the DC Homebrewer one. You can just give them my email if you want, and be like, "Hey, this guy is doing this. If
Yeah,
you're interested,
I'll let him know. I don't know if he's on Reddit or other social media. Reddit's the only one that I'm on. I don't think he's on there. So yeah, I'll give him a ring and say like, hey, I do this podcast. If you're interested,
perfect."
might be a good opportunity to plug
Yeah, the
what we're doing.
the DC guys, yeah, for sure. Okay, so I've been asking this for every person I've talked to so far. Is there a recipe that you're willing to share with the audience? So what I'm doing is I have like a Google spreadsheet, and I'll just kind of add in like every episode. I'll kind of pop this in like this is the recipe, blah blah blah. You can go make their favorite thing. Just something kind of neat to kind of give to the community.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So I have a handful. I have my Beersmith up on my screen right here. I could do it right now if you want to, but I've had a Wee Heavy place at NHC. I've had the Oak Age Triple
Okay,
place. I've
be
had the
interesting one.
Saison. I've had the Saison. The best that I've ever done at NHC was I think 2019. I took first place in the Belgian category at the local level, and it made it. I didn't medal, but I made it to the best of show like
That's
round where
awesome. Yeah.
they're pulling out there. So I was probably like in the top 10 or something like that. And that I always consider that like the best beer I ever made. I knew it was going to be fantastic right when I brewed it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm willing to share any of this stuff. I don't keep anything secret.
Be dealer's choice. You can share as much as you want or as little as you want. It doesn't really bother
So
me either way.
do you want me to go over this now, or you want me to send it to you?
Just send it to me just through the email.
Okay,
Yeah,
I can do that.
that'd be perfect. And like I said, I'll get the Google sheet up there and I'll just kind of plug it in there. And Bob's your uncle.
That's right.
Well, Jay, has been a pleasure meeting you and chit-chatting with you for the past 2 hours now. I can't believe it
Thanks.
turned by that much time.
I hope your audience enjoys this.
Oh,
And
yeah, I'm sure
yeah,
they will.
it's been a pleasure speaking with you. And I really wish you and I really wish the best for this homebrew channel.
Yeah, same here.
I really wish, like, if
Thank
there's
you.
anything I can do to help this, take this further or take off, let me know, because we need more people talking about beer and sharing, the good stuff about homebrewing in the community.
Yeah, for sure, buddy. Jay, on that note, I appreciate all your time, and hopefully we'll see you in Asheville in a little more than 5.5 months. Yep, see you, buddy.